Welcome to Miss Scarlett. Subscribe and don't miss out on Patreon. Have fun! In the dimly lit apartment, a lone editor faced the digital battlefield yet again, armed with only a keyboard and an insatiable passion. Each keystroke, a silent cry for recognition, echoed through the empty room. The digital canvas, flickering with cold blue light, displayed his work, a series of videos vying for attention in the vast online realm. The clock struck the ungodly hours, marking another night of relentless dedication. Empty energy drink cans, piled like fallen soldiers, encircled his fortress of creativity, a grim reminder of time's relentless march. "The show must go on," he declared to the silent witnesses, his audience of none. A weary smile graced his face, a facade of resilience, as he addressed the void. As the final touches were applied, the world seemed to stand still, indifferent to his efforts. The count remained unwavering, a mere 342 admirers of his digital masterpiece. After 18 months of daily content, the number felt like a personal insult. The faded black t-shirt and worn jeans he wore matched his mood. Unremarkable, forgettable. His gaming commentary was solid, his gameplay above average, but something was missing. In a sea of similar content creators, Hayes Harrison was drowning in obscurity. A notification popped up on his phone. His friend Damon had sent a link. "Check this out. 300K viewers right now. This is what's trending." The link opened to a stream where someone called Crystal Knight was playing the same game Hayes had just finished streaming, except she had 300,000 concurrent viewers and a donation ticker rapidly climbing past $2,000. The streamer wore an elaborate cosplay of a female version of the game's male protagonist, complete with armor redesigned with feminine elements. "It's called gender-bent cosplay streaming," Damon explained in their chat, "taking male characters and reimagining them as female. Huge right now." "Seems gimmicky," Hayes typed back, even as he scrolled through Crystal Knight's previous videos. Each featured a different character, different costume, different colored wig. "Maybe," Damon replied. "But it's also creative as hell. And it's working." Long after the conversation ended, Hayes found himself still watching these gender-bent streams, noting the intricate costumes, the careful attention to detail, the way the streamers fully embodied characters rather than just playing games. An idea began to form. "This is stupid," Hayes muttered to himself 3 days later, sitting before a small makeup mirror ordered from Amazon, along with a starter makeup kit and auburn wig he'd found on sale. The costume, a feminine version of Eldritch Knight, his favorite game character, hung on the closet door, a sewing machine still out from his clumsy but determined attempts at creating it. The transformation was awkward at first, foundation too thick, eyeliner uneven, lipstick bleeding beyond the lips. But after hours of YouTube tutorials and practice, something emerged in the mirror that made Hayes pause. "Hello?" said the reflection, voice higher than normal. "I'm Saoirse." The name had come to him while researching, an Irish name meaning freedom, appropriate for what felt like a new beginning. The first stream as Saoirse lasted only an hour. Hayes wore the auburn wig styled into long waves, the makeshift costume that reimagined Eldritch Knight's armor with a corset-inspired breastplate, and a skirt that maintained the character's signature color scheme of deep reds and blacks. Black boots with a modest heel completed the look. 20 viewers, then 50. By the end, nearly 200 people were watching. "Thanks for joining me," Saoirse said at the end, voice carefully maintained in the higher register Hayes had practiced.
"Same time tomorrow?"
The comments section exploded with enthusiastic responses. 1 month later, the subscriber count passed 10,000. Saoirse now streamed 5 days a week, each day featuring a different character, but always with the same auburn wig that had become her signature look. Hayes invested in better equipment, better fabric, better makeup. The costumes grew more elaborate, the gameplay more confident.
The auburn hair really suits you,
one frequent commenter wrote.
It's becoming your trademark.
Hayes stared at that comment for a long time. The auburn wig had become more than just a prop. It had become Saoirse's identity, her calling card. While other streamers constantly changed hair colors, Saoirse was known for her consistent look with different outfits. At 3 months, the channel hit 50,000 subscribers. Hayes rented a small studio space to film in, giving Saoirse a more professional backdrop. The costume rack expanded rapidly. The money from donations and sponsorships began to make Hayes consider quitting his day job at the electronics store.
I need to see what you've been working on,
Damon insisted, after nearly 4 months of Hayes becoming increasingly reclusive, focused entirely on building Saoirse's brand. You barely answer texts anymore. When Damon arrived at the studio, he found not Hayes but Saoirse, in full costume, preparing for a stream.
Holy shit,
Damon whispered, taking in the transformation.
That's impressive.
The costume today was a female version of Garrick, the popular RPG wizard, reimagined with a flowing skirt instead of robes, corset bodice accented with mystical symbols, and delicate jewelry that matched the character's lore. The auburn wig was styled in an elaborate braid with magical-looking accessories woven throughout.
Thanks,
Hayes responded, still in character as Saoirse, before catching himself and dropping into his natural voice. It takes about 3 hours to get ready now.
3 hours? Every day? 5 days a week. The subscribers expect it.
Damon's eyes tracked around the studio, the professional lighting, the extensive costume rack, the shelves of makeup and accessories.
This is serious business now, huh?
Look at this. Hayes pulled up the analytics page.
100,000 subscribers as of yesterday. I'm making more from this than my regular job now.
That's amazing, Damon said, though his expression remained concerned. But are you still Hayes sometimes? When do you just hang out as yourself? The question lingered uncomfortably in the air.
I need to start streaming soon,
Hayes said, gesturing toward the door.
We'll catch up later?
After Damon left, Hayes sat before the streaming setup, adjusting Saoirse's appearance in the preview window. The truth was, he couldn't remember the last time he had just been Hayes. Even on days without streams, he found himself practicing makeup techniques, working on costumes, planning content as Saoirse. The stream that day broke all previous records. A game developer noticed Saoirse's channel and shared it on their official social media. By the stream's end, the subscriber count approached 150,000. At the 6-month mark, Hayes officially quit his day job. Saoirse had passed 300,000 subscribers. Sponsorship deals rolled in. Game developers sent advance copies of their titles. A costume company offered to create professional-grade outfits for future streams in exchange for promotion. The pattern was established. 5 days a week, Hayes would transform into Saoirse, stream for 4 to 6 hours, then reluctantly remove the costume, wig, and makeup. The days off were spent preparing new content, making adjustments to costumes, or simply recovering from the grueling schedule. Something strange began happening around the 8-month mark. The transformation into Saoirse, once a lengthy process, became more natural, more seamless. The heavy makeup routine streamlined as Hayes mastered techniques. The voice no longer required conscious effort to maintain. The movements, once carefully practiced, flowed naturally. More disturbing was what happened on days when Hayes didn't transform. A heaviness settled over him, a disconnection from his own body. Looking in the mirror while presenting as male felt increasingly foreign, like staring at a stranger wearing his face. "Just tired," he told himself, pushing the feelings aside. "Just stressed from the workload." At the 1-year anniversary of Saoirse's channel, now boasting over 500,000 subscribers, Hayes planned a special 12-hour charity stream. The costume was his most elaborate yet, a completely original character inspired by elements from various games, featuring an intricate dress with armor elements, custom jewelry, and the signature auburn wig styled into an elaborate updo. The stream was a resounding success, raising over $30,000 for a children's hospital. When it ended, exhausted but exhilarated, Hayes couldn't bring himself to change out of the costume. Instead, he collapsed onto the studio sofa, still fully dressed as Saoirse, and fell into a deep sleep. The dream was vivid. In it, Hayes couldn't find his reflection in any mirror. Every reflective surface showed only Saoirse looking back at him, auburn hair framing a face that seemed increasingly natural, increasingly right. He woke with a start. Morning light filtered through the studio blinds. A moment of confusion gave way to clarity as Hayes realized something profound. The discomfort he'd been feeling wasn't about the exhaustion of maintaining Saoirse. It was about the increasing discomfort of returning to Hayes. The realization didn't come as a shock. Rather, it felt like acknowledging something long known but unspoken. "I'm not playing a character," Hayes whispered to the empty studio. "I'm finding myself." The following weeks were filled with research, with quiet reflection, with tentative reaches into communities online. The word transgender appeared in search histories, in forum memberships, in hesitant questions posed to anonymous support groups. The responses were overwhelming in their understanding, their recognition of patterns Hayes had been experiencing. 3 months after that revelation, Hayes scheduled a meeting with a therapist specializing in gender identity. The conversation was both terrifying and liberating. Words were put to feelings long suppressed. A path forward began to take shape. "I'd like to transition," Hayes told the therapist at their 3rd session. "I've been living as Saoirse part-time for over a year now. It's where I feel whole." The therapist nodded. "And how do you plan to handle this with your audience?" It was the question Hayes had been wrestling with for weeks. The channel was now approaching 1 million subscribers. Sponsorships were lucrative. The line between Hayes and Saoirse had already blurred for most of the audience. Many suspected that the character was more than just a streaming persona. The announcement stream was scheduled for a Sunday evening. Hayes appeared on camera, not in an elaborate costume, but in a simple black dress, the auburn wig styled naturally, makeup minimal but present. "Hello, everyone," she began, voice steady in what was now her natural speaking tone. "Many of you have been with this channel from the beginning, watching it evolve from simple gameplay to what it is today. You've watched Saoirse develop as a character, except Saoirse isn't just a character to me anymore." The chat moved too quickly to read, but she continued. "I've come to realize over this past year that the person you see before you isn't a costume I put on for streams. This is who I truly am. My name is Saoirse. I am a transgender woman, and I have begun the process of transition." She paused, taking a deep breath. "I understand if this changes how some of you view the channel. I understand if some of you choose to unsubscribe. But I hope most of you will continue this journey with me. The content won't change. We'll still have games, cosplay, and all the things you've come to expect. The only difference is that I can finally be honest about who I am." The response was overwhelming. While a small percentage of viewers expressed confusion or disappeared, the vast majority responded with support, many sharing that they had suspected this revelation for some time. The subscriber count, which Saoirse had expected to drop, instead climbed higher. The next phase of her career began to take shape. The cosplay became less about gender-bending male characters and more about authentic representations of female characters. The auburn wig gave way to her own hair as hormone therapy allowed it to grow longer, though she maintained the auburn color through careful dyeing to maintain her recognizable look. Game developers who had previously sent advance copies now invited her to consult on character design, particularly for female characters. Her insights on creating authentic women in gaming spaces became valued in an industry often criticized for its representation issues. A major cosplay convention invited her as a featured guest, standing on stage before thousands of fans, wearing an elaborate costume of her own design, no longer a female version of anything but an original character with armor over a crimson dress that matched her auburn hair. Saoirse felt a sense of completion. 2 years ago, she told the audience during her panel, I started a stream thinking I was playing a character. What I discovered was that the character was actually playing me, showing me who I could become, who I was meant to be. The applause was deafening. Later that evening, sitting in her hotel room, she received a text from Damon. Watched your panel online. So proud of you. You seem happy. She smiled at her phone, then caught her reflection in the mirror across the room. The auburn hair, now her own, framed a face that had softened with hormone therapy. The black dress she'd changed into after the convention was simple but elegant. I am, she texted back. For the first time, I really am. 2 years after her public transition, Saoirse had become one of the most recognized names in gaming content creation. Her channel had expanded to include discussions about representation in gaming, tutorials on cosplay creation, and collaborations with other transgender creators in the space. A major gaming company approached her about becoming the face of their new inclusive character creator system, one that allowed players unprecedented freedom in designing characters across the gender spectrum. The irony wasn't lost on her. Her journey had begun with bending the gender of existing characters, and now she would help create tools for others to find themselves in virtual spaces. The contract signing took place in a sleek conference room overlooking the city. Saoirse wore a professional burgundy blazer over a black dress, her auburn hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. The company executives treated her with the respect afforded to any valuable business partner. We believe your insight will be invaluable, the project director explained. Your experience bridges communities in a way few content creators can match. As flashbulbs popped during the photo opportunity, Saoirse caught sight of herself in the reflection of the window. The person looking back at her was confident, successful, authentic. The auburn-haired woman in the reflection was simply herself, no longer a persona or a character. Later that evening, she streamed from her home studio, sharing the news with her community. This partnership means everything to me, she explained, auburn hair now loose around her shoulders, excitement evident in her voice. When I started streaming, I was looking for an audience. What I found instead was myself. If this character creator helps even one person find that same connection, that same truth about themselves, it will be worth everything. The chat flooded with supportive messages. Many shared stories of how Saoirse's journey had helped them understand their own gender identity or had helped them support friends or family members going through similar realizations. A donation appeared with a message. You showed me it was possible to be myself. Starting HRT next week. Thank you for being brave first. Saoirse felt tears welling in her eyes. "I wasn't brave," she responded. "I was desperate to be whole. Sometimes that looks like bravery from the outside." 3 years into her transition, Saoirse received an invitation that seemed impossible, a cover feature for a major gaming magazine, highlighting the most influential voices in the industry. The photo shoot took place in a studio not unlike the one where she'd first started streaming as Saoirse. The photographer directed her through a series of poses, the camera capturing images that would have been unimaginable to Hayes sitting alone in that apartment with a cheap wig and homemade costume. "These are gorgeous," the photographer said, reviewing the shots. "The auburn really catches the light beautifully." Saoirse smiled. The color that had started as a random choice for a wig had become so interwoven with her identity that she couldn't imagine herself any other way. The magazine cover, when published, featured her in a designer dress that echoed the red and black color scheme of her first Eldritch Knight costume, auburn hair styled in elegant waves. The headline read, "Rewriting the Code, How Saoirse Changed the Face of Gaming Culture." The article detailed her journey, her influence on character design in major games, and her advocacy work within the industry. It noted how character customization options had expanded across the gaming landscape, partly due to her influence, how major titles now included transgender characters written with depth and authenticity. Reading it in her apartment, a much larger, brighter space than the one where Hayes had once struggled to find an audience, Saoirse felt a sense of completion. The journey from that first awkward stream to this moment had been challenging, often painful, but ultimately transformative in ways she could never have anticipated. Her phone rang. The caller ID showed it was her agent. "Have you seen the offers coming in?" her agent asked excitedly. "The magazine cover is everywhere. 3 game studios want you as a consultant. 2 clothing brands want to discuss signature lines. And there's a book deal on the table. Your memoir." "A memoir?" Saoirse laughed. "I'm only 28. "A 28-year-old who changed an industry," her agent countered. "Your story matters, Saoirse." After the call ended, she sat quietly, contemplating how to capture her journey in words, how to explain that what had begun as a marketing strategy had revealed a truth she might otherwise have taken years more to discover. That evening, she streamed a special Q&A session with her community. Wearing a simple red sweater that complemented her auburn hair, she answered questions about the magazine cover, about upcoming projects, about her experiences in the industry. Then a question appeared that made her pause. "If you could go back and tell Hayes anything at the beginning of all this, what would you say?" Saoirse considered the question carefully, twirling a strand of auburn hair around her finger as she thought. "I would tell Hayes that the character you're creating isn't just a persona. She's a possibility. She's who you could be if you were brave enough to let yourself become whole." She smiled softly. "And I'd tell him that the auburn wig was a good choice, because I'm still wearing that color all these years later." The stream continued for hours, the conversation flowing between professional topics and personal reflection. When it finally ended, Saoirse didn't immediately shut down her equipment as she normally would. Instead, she sat quietly, looking at her reflection in the monitor. The person looking back at her was simply herself. Not Hayes pretending to be someone else. Not Saoirse, the character. Just Saoirse, the woman she had always been beneath the surface, now fully realized. She reached up and touched her auburn hair, the color that had been with her since the beginning of this journey. What had started as a random choice had become an essential part of her identity, a thread of continuity connecting all the versions of herself. Her phone buzzed with a notification. The major gaming convention that had first invited her as a guest years ago wanted her to deliver the keynote address at their upcoming event. The topic they suggested, finding yourself through play. The convention hall was packed. Thousands of gaming enthusiasts gathered to hear her speak. Saoirse stood backstage, smoothing down the custom-designed dress that paid homage to her streaming beginnings. Red and black, elegant yet reminiscent of gaming aesthetics. Her auburn hair was styled in loose waves that caught the stage lights as she waited for her introduction. 5 years had passed since that first stream as Saoirse. 5 years of evolution, of growth, of becoming. The journey from Hayes to Saoirse hadn't been a straight line, but a winding path of discovery. The gaming channel that had begun as an attempt to find an audience had instead helped her find herself. And now, the convention director's voice boomed through the speakers. Please welcome our keynote speaker, the woman whose journey has inspired millions and changed the face of gaming culture, Saoirse. As she walked onto the stage to thunderous applause, the giant screens behind her displayed images from her journey, screenshots from early streams, magazine covers, game character designs she'd influenced, and finally, the current Saoirse, standing confidently in the spotlight. Thank you, she said into the microphone, her voice carrying clearly through the massive hall. 5 years ago, I put on a wig and costume, thinking I was creating a character. What I didn't realize was that I was actually uncovering the person I was always meant to be. She paused, looking out at the sea of faces. Games have always been about possibility, about becoming someone else, exploring identities and stories different from our own. For me, that exploration led to the most important discovery of my life. It led me home, to myself. As she continued her speech, weaving together her personal journey with broader themes about identity, representation, and authenticity in gaming spaces, Saoirse knew she had found not just success, but purpose. The auburn-haired woman speaking confidently to thousands wasn't a character or a creation. She was simply, finally, completely herself. And that, she realized, was the greatest achievement of all.
Thanks for watching, my girlies! Be sure to check out Patreon for more!